hello, everyone. Thank you for joining on this Saturday afternoon. It's been a hectic day and hectic time since Friday evening. We are going live. I'm joined with Peter Bade and Ryan Harris, both from Corporate Immigration Partners. We're going live to discuss the recent news that broke last night. President Trump signed a proclamation imposing a $100,000 fee on H-1B visa petitions for foreign workers outside the U.S. The president signed this last night, September 19th. Um, I'm reading directly from our Envoy Global write-up that the team put together. The proclamation suspends the entry of certain H-1B non-immigrants into the U.S. and requires U.S. employers to pay a $100,000 fee for each H-1B non-immigrant worker seeking entry from outside the country. This proclamation takes effect at 12:01 a.m. Eastern on September 21st, 2025. And joining me is, like I said, Peter Bade and Ryan Harris from Corporate Immigration Partners to talk more about this breaking news and what we know at this time. We're going live at 2:42 p.m. Saturday Central Time. So if you are watching this at a later date, some things may have changed. But for now, this is what Peter and Ryan know. And I'm going to turn it back to them or turn it over to them shortly. If you are watching on LinkedIn, feel free to comment with your questions for Ryan and Peter. Just please know, though, that please don't reveal personal information in your question. And given the format, Peter and Ryan cannot provide specific advice on your case. So with that, Peter and Ryan, I'll turn it over to you just to discuss what you know, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Eric. There's a lot that we don't know so far, so there's definitely some unanswered questions. We will go over what we do know today, and we're going to go by the text of the actual executive order itself. I'll point out, just as we dive into those provisions, that there is some inconsistency and some kind of mixed messaging out there. The White House did release a fact sheet along with the executive order that seems to have some inconsistency with the terms in the order itself, suggesting it may apply only to new H-1B visa applications. There have also been some press reports this morning that from administration officials, unnamed in these press reports so far, that the order may not apply to those currently in H-1B status who are abroad, and that there may not be as big of a rush to get back to the U.S. by midnight tonight, which is when the order goes into effect. But for now, there's been no official clarification. All we have to go on is the text of the order, so that's what we're going to speak to today. We would welcome further clarification from the administration, and hopefully this is not as expansive as it seems by the text. So I'll start by breaking this down into a few different groups of people, right? The order, which requires this $100,000 payment, seems to apply to group number one, which is those seeking entry who are outside the U.S. As of midnight tonight. So folks who would come in after midnight tonight would be subject to the $100,000 fee payment, and if it's not paid, would potentially be denied entry. The second group that could be impacted is petitions that are filed or pending where the beneficiary of that petition is currently abroad. Some ambiguity into how that would be implemented or enforced, but that speaks to potentially pending or future filed H-1B petitions, but again, limited to those who are abroad. Do we know whether that's abroad at the time of filing or whether they're abroad while the case is pending? That remains unclear. There does not seem to be any impact in sort of the third group that I'll set up here for in-country filings where the individual, the beneficiary of the H-1B petition, is inside the U.S. So this is like your standard extension petition, a transfer petition to move your H-1B employment from one employer to another, a petition to amend status for a job change or a worksite change. Those do not seem to be impacted yet or subject to the $100,000 fee. So that's what we have to go on for now. What does that mean in terms of recommendations for travel? If you are currently outside of the U.S. in H-1B status and you are seeking to return to the U.S., you should try to do so, if at all possible, before the proclamation goes into effect, which again is midnight tonight. These restrictions, as per the text of the order, apply irrespective of whether you already have a valid H-1B visa stamp in your passport or a valid H-1B petition. you must enter before the effective date if you want to not be subject to that $100,000 fee. If you cannot return prior to the effective date of the proclamation, right, we've only got 11 and change hours to go before that effective date, the advice is to stay put until further notice, until we get further clarification from the administration. Reach out to your employer and your legal counsel to discuss your specific plans, but I would not intend to arrive after the effective date until there's further clarity, because you could be denied entry, unclear whether or not you would even be able to board a flight to the U.S. at that point. If you're inside the U.S. in H-1B status, we recommend you delay any travel. If you have anything coming up in the next few days, I would suggest putting that off until further information is available. You should not depart the U.S. if you intend to re-enter in H-1B status after the proclamation's effective date. And again, this applies even if you already hold an H-1B visa stamp from what we know at this moment. For H-4 dependents, we are also going to recommend that they stay in the U.S. While things are being clarified here. It's possible that H-4 holders could be admitted while traveling alone and may not be subject to the order, but there's likely to be a lot of confusion at the ports of entry. So if you can hold off on travel, you should do so from now. In terms of what happens next, we do expect and anticipate that lawsuits are likely to be brought imminently by several interest groups, and that, as we've seen with other administration executive orders as to immigration, that the courts could step in to quickly block this order. That could happen conceivably as early as next week. But the timing and the scope of any judicial action remains highly uncertain. It's possible that a trial court, district court judge could enter an order, but it only applies to certain plaintiffs or certain parts of the country. So you could have some sort of patchwork enforcement here as well. So again, very fluid situation. And so freeze up those travel plans if you can. We are doing our best to monitor developments. There's limited information. More should be forthcoming. If you are a CIP or Envoy client, we are developing materials that will be shared that would be template starter materials to speak to your foreign national population, to your executive team. And so clients of ours will be in touch on that soon. I think that really covers it for the travel recommendations for what we know for the present moment. I'll toss it over to Peter now to order that are perhaps less urgent.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. Great summary of the impact and what's going on. The proclamation that came out last night also does have some nuances, including possible exemptions for companies and employees to not have to pay that proposed $100,000 fee. There also is some interesting things in there about restrictions on the B visa, and as well as prevailing wages for H-1Bs. With respect to the exemptions for paying that $100,000 fee, there is some language in the proclamation that suggests that if the foreign national employee, their company, or their industry is within the national interest, the U.S. national interest, as determined by the Secretary of Homeland Security, that those potential H-1B employees and their companies may be exempt from paying that $100,000 fee. However, that's really generic at this point. There is no detail in terms of what constitutes a national interest and how to show that national interest. Conceivably, perhaps there could be something with, writing a statement when you apply for a visa to show that national interest, as was done during the COVID pandemic, but that's not known at this point in time. No clarity, no details on that. So at this point in time, until there's more released on who would qualify and how you qualify under that national interest exemption, I don't think companies can really rely on that as a stopgap measure at this point to avoid that fee. Also in the proclamation, there is a restriction, potential heightened scrutiny on current H-1B holders trying to circumvent that fee by entering on a B-1 visa or ESTA. There is some language in the proclamation that suggests that, the Secretary of State and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary would scrutinize those types of applicants who might want to come in, who are outside, who might want to come in and use a B-1 or ESTA in lieu of the H-1B to avoid that fee. Potentially, there might be some restrictions on those foreign nationals trying to enter on an ESTA or B-1 who are currently H-1B visa holders. And lastly, there is some language in the proclamation that alludes to the fact that the Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Secretary of State may look into revamping the prevailing wage system as it currently exists at the moment. We saw some language and releases from the White House earlier this year about attempting to potentially review the prevailing wage levels, as well as look at that as a mechanism to sort of prioritize lottery selections in this coming lottery. So I think that is something that we might see sooner than later. I know that currently there's a proposed regulation with the Office of with OMB at the moment for review, attempting to sort of look at those wage labels and how that would play into the future lotteries and potentially prioritize lottery selections for those employees paid the highest of the prevailing wage levels. So that is something that's forthcoming, and with the language of this proclamation, right, it potentially could be coming sooner than later. So again, a lot unknown at this point in time. So I think stay tuned.
I think that covers the order's fairly brief. That covers what we know for right now. This was put on at short notice. We might not have many live club questions, but we are ready to assist clients in any way we can. We understand this is a very anxious and thought-provoking time for being worried about H-1B travel. So make sure you are checking with a professional as you build your travel plans. And we look forward to working with everyone in the days ahead to do what we can to smooth out the experience.
Thank you, Ryan and Peter, for hopping on short notice and putting together this live recording. I am looking at the LinkedIn event, and no questions have come through at the moment. I'll give it a few more seconds, but as we wait for more questions to come through, as a reminder that this is being recorded and this will be posted to the Envoy Global Envoy Global YouTube page when that is done, and it'll also be shared on Envoy Global's website, as well as Corporate Immigration Partner or CIP's website, including our LinkedIn pages. Be sure to check out envoyglobal.com for more updates, and I think that we'll call that a wraps. Peter, Ryan, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll end things there.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.